Hey, hello, this is Sean from the podcast Thrive Not Survive After Child Abuse. Yeah, I promised to do, well, at least I promised it to myself to do the podcast from different places than just from behind my desk. And so, hence, I think it's maybe a good way to start to do it from my backyard, which is actually pretty nice. We spent a lot of time in there in making it pretty, and we're heading into the fall. But I'm sure you're not listening to hear how my backyard is. Yesterday or the day before, I'm not sure when I actually broadcasted it, we had a talk about the four levels of consciousness, and that's actually the second time I talked about it. And I probably will spend a little bit more time on that thing because. From the reactions that I received, but also from what I actually wanted to bring as a message to you guys. It's a pretty important message, and I'm just fighting a little bit with my gimbal here, so you won't see that if you're just listening to my podcast. But if you just seeing this live, then you might have a little bit fun with me as well, right? All right. So four levels of consciousness, and I think I'm going to explore each of those levels a little bit deeper with you, and then see how they relate mostly to child abuse victims as well. Now, obviously, the four levels of consciousness don't only apply to when you are a child abuse. On the contrary, actually, it applies to everyone. Every human being goes through those four stages of conscious level, and they all have sub levels as well, and we'll explore that as well. So let me repeat to you very quickly what those four levels of consciousness were. First one is the conscious level of me. That is when we first become aware of ourselves, our own ego. We start to explore the world, and then on the place I kind of was demonstrating how you maybe use your hand and say, hey, this is my hand, and stuff like that. And then after conscious level number 2, you become more aware of that there are other people in your surrounding as well. The first one, normally, if you depends on how you were raised, but it's normally your mom and your dad, and food appears. You don't actually know that they do it, but those are the two people that you see, and sometimes you start to become aware that say, hey, if I cry a little bit more, I get things more done. So I'm asking a question to you: is that more a we consciousness, or is it more a me consciousness, right? That is becoming more conscious of the we, but we're going to manipulate a little bit more than actually adding to it, right? So we would do that. We all do that. There's nothing wrong with you if you do that or did that or what have you not. I'm just going to say to you that it's kind of a normal thing to do. Now, then we come to the conscious level of what I call the Earth consciousness, or the global consciousness. You start to see that your world is not only the small circle around you, but you start to see that actually the whole world is that you are part of it. And one of the things that we mostly talk about nowadays is, of course, the environment, and how bad the environment is influenced about what we all, I mean, it's not only the bad people or something, it's we all as the collective human being. Because if I would point fingers to a specific group, actually I'm not so much we conscious. Do you understand how that works, right? Then I'm maybe a little bit more me conscious, and then I go all the way over to look at what everyone is doing in the world and how bad that is, and I'm doing everything correct. Yeah, do you see how these things are starting to interrelate? And then last but not least, that's the fourth level of consciousness, is that you truly can see that everything is interrelated from a universe point of view. And I call it the divine consciousness, but a lot of people call it the universe consciousness, right? So those are the four levels of consciousness. And some people believe that they think, we need to go very quickly to that fourth level of consciousness, and then we're all enlightened and stuff like that. Well, you know, if you're an enlightened person, it's not like the world suddenly goes and everything is pretty and so on. It's not like that, right? It doesn't work like that. It's actually completely different. There is no big miracle change if you see the things in a slightly different perspective. You feel more responsible for the things, and you start to actually be more active. So some people sometimes think, I want to go back into my oblivious state, because when I was in my oblivious state, life was a lot easier than than when I'm not in the oblivious state. So you don't know anything about what's going on in the world. Life becomes very easy, right? So think about it. When you were just in your little me state, you know, you don't have to concern whether you get food or not, and it was all taken care of. Life was really nice. And then when the world starts bigger and you start to see more things, you know, life was definitely it was definitely nice and easy. But then you become more aware of things, and the trick is, what is it that you want to become aware of, and what is it that you are aware of? So there are two different things, right? I can make you aware of a couple of things. So let me tell you, let me give you an example. If I, for instance, tell you that there are 600,000 abuse victims in the world every day, new ones, right? Then you would think, really? I mean, I didn't know that. That's a lot. I said, yeah. Do you know how much that is? That is well, that's not only in the world, by the way. That's only in the US and Europe. If I tell you that that is one each minute, then you would think, man, Sean, that is almost impossible. Each year, sorry. I mean, 600,000 new victims each year, which comes down to one victim per minute, which is 1,440 per day. So that's a lot. So you might not know that, and you suddenly become aware of it. Now, this is maybe something that you did not want to be aware of. So I gave you something that might actually even disturb you a little bit, or makes you a little bit anxious around it, and that's definitely not my purpose. But that happens all the time, right? So I'm very careful in what I feed my brain with. Not to be naive, by the way, but there's a lot of negative news out there, and there are certain things that I want to concentrate on, and there are probably certain things that you want to concentrate on. So that is how you can keep, protect yourself also a little bit while you grow in your conscious level. Now, going back to my original statement that you need to be embracing every conscious level to its fullest, if you to the fullest, not the foolish, right? I'm sorry. To the fullest, right? That's what I wanted to say, to the fullest, right? So what I mean with that is we sometimes skip a level. Let's say we skip the we level, or we, and I give you that example already, and then you're very concerned about Mother Earth, but you start to blame everyone. Yeah, and that is meaning actually that your we consciousness is not fully grown. So that could happen on each state. Now, for yourself, if you go to the first conscious level, is when do you know if you have, and I don't want to qualify things, how do you know that you have a fully grown me conscious level? Now, I'm not the one who measuring it, but I'm giving you a couple of ideas, right? It first of all has to do with self-worth, right? If you feel that you have a lot of self-worth, that's a really good sign. How can you measure that? Well, often if you look around the world and you feel very secure, you feel very confident to do things, you're not afraid to share your opinion in a positive way, right? That means you have a self-worth. You don't have to have other people who constantly want to remind you how well you are doing, right? So, I'm the one, I thrive on, on positive reinforcement. I seriously do, right? I like to have compliments, who doesn't, right? And, but I don't believe I do it because I'm a lack of self-worth. I just like them. But if you feel that you are dependent of compliments, if you need to have constantly a lot of likes on your Facebook page or on your Instagram page, you have to think about that. You make your self-worth depending of other people. Now let me make a connection here to what child abuse people go to. And child abuse people, they often lack of self-worth because their self-worth was so young violated, physically and mentally. And often the abuser talks so much down to the child that in my case I was. So they actually bring down your value. They might not even know it, but it's a pattern. Every abuser does that. They make sure that because it's always a power game, right? Abuse is always to do with power. So the more power they have over you, the more safer they can play their game. So let me give you a very concrete example. My abuser constantly told me how bad I was doing the things that actually he did to me. I felt it was bad, so he said it's a secret, and if other people know it, you get either punished, or some people believe you go to hell. Whatever you believe, whatever they can make you believe in, and that actually diminishes your self-worth. And before you know, there's almost nothing you can do without getting any reinforcement from anyone around you. So that you get a very unhealthy me consciousness. Does that make sense? Yeah. So that's how we go in the coming days. I'm not sure if I do it in consecutive days, but I'll come back on this point, and then we'll talk about the conscious level more. We might not have been completely finished with the me consciousness, but then you kind of feel where we're going through in the next couple of podcasts. So I hope you're glad that I'm back on the daily podcast. Send me some questions around the things that I did and that I just told you. I also in the meantime will tell you a lot about the trip that I took. It was a 10-11 days trip, so there's a lot to tell you about as well. But one of the things was this inspiration that I had to tell you more about the 4 levels of consciousness, and specifically how that affect you if you were a child abuse victim, or how you can use that to help a child abuse victim, right? So if you don't want to do that, but you just want to forward this to someone who might need it, that will be of a great help, right? Does that make sense? All right, so I'm going to turn myself a little bit around. Maybe you can get a little bit of a view of my Zen garden here, and here is in the Dallas area in Texas, and that's where I am at the current moment. I will do more podcasts from outside. You cannot see it if you just listen to me on Spotify or Anchor FM. That's okay, but I'll place the video on YouTube. So if you want to see me, then you can see and follow me there. All right, this was Jean from the podcast Thrive and Not Survive After Child Abuse. Bye bye.